gratuitous. That's conquering and capturing identities, that's why. The theft of identity, bro. Okay, here we go, here we go, here we go. I'm trying to find my window. Why? I know why. I know why. I switched off that setting, didn't I? Da-dum, da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum. Well, let's get this done. We shall begin in just a minute. Oh no! You can choose to quit. I'll do it at my own risk. At my own risk. Right, let's go. Let's explore. Can you hear me?
It's harder to pass on. So that culture, that's why a lot of people just like that knowledge is.
Where are my points gone, bro? Ah. Oh, he's so dangerous. Why is he like this? No. You got me. He's gonna call his mate. There he is. Come on, let's get this guy out of here first. Let's dispatch him. Ah, he's using magic! You cheater! Oh my god! I'm still alive! Ah! What's up, Hedge? I don't know what that is, Hedge. I have no idea what that is. What that is, bro. What is that? We should go back to the main game area anyways. Thinking I was gonna get this guy out of here is crazy work. You still gotta beat that that prince, whatever his name is. Let's give it one more shot. The crawling prince we gotta beat. No, that's my 1 point off. Yeah, we're gonna have to level up something serious to fight this fight. All of the bosses are against right now are too tough. Yes, so. Finally. Come on, bro. Get him. Oh, here it comes. Dead. Move, man. I don't want to fight you yet. Let me deal with me. How it feels. Oh my god! Oh, so close. So close. He's beatable. Certainly beatable. Yeah, I didn't press the live button, did I? If you're wondering what that sound is, that's me, but from 2 months ago. So I'm just listening to one of the other streams I did on the subject. I'm trying to remember. So let's get you background there. What's up, Joe? You guys playing Blockbuster? Hey, get out of me. Oh, we're dead. Yeet. Alright, it's me and you, bro. Cheap. You. Well, that sounds about white. Come on, 2 more of those. Why would you kick in the middle of that combo? Come on, 1 more of those. You're dispatched. Now it's you have to deal with. Oh, he's still alive. I see a sliver. Can't be. Oh, he's got friends. Do you? Seems you're here. Ah! Oh, he's too overwhelming. Give me some space, damn it. How did I beat the last one? Damn. I mean, you're here, bro. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Is the question. It looks to me like you may be the one who's jobless. Believe in the what? In the filth. What's that even mean, bro? Alright, let's go back to the main game. I could actually beat him, but I want to get some skill points under my belt. Let's check our items first. We've got some souls to use. Human dregs. How much souls will we get for that though? We're gonna go to Londo. No, Londo. No roof, that's not how it works, unfortunately. It's quite simplistic thinking. But you're more than welcome to continue to think that way. But that's just not how it works. You're talking about synthetic things that you know humans made. 1, you don't know God exists. And 2, you don't know if God is capable of making anything. And 3, you know humans exist. And 4, you know humans are capable of making things, right? So it doesn't necessarily follow logically, right? With their minds. Cax. They made it with their minds. Like they make everything else. That's cool. Why do you believe though? Have you interrogated your beliefs, or you just believing based on tradition? You're going on somebody's word. Have you actually looked into it for yourself? Figure out what is true and what is not. This bit's gonna be pretty boring for you guys, so I'm just gonna mine points for a minute. Till we hit like 50,000-ish. I'm not sure, actually there is places to explore back on the main map. We'll see. I think this is your first time here, isn't it? It's quite a dull thing to say, wouldn't you say? We need to find a way to get a bit more of a soul boost, though. It's not really. Oh, no. I guess it might get there quickly. How can you know that, Beaches? How do you know something is responsible for creating stuff? Is that Mega Man? Like a retarded version of Mega Man? Excuse my French. It's just it's what it looks like. That's probably the wrong word to use. I apologize. Yeah. What makes you think anything in the universe is created? When we're talking about planets and solar systems and stuff, the only things that we know for sure, are created is things that humans create. We're the only beings we know of with the capacity to create things. So to think that a god is able to create things is just an anthropomorphic feature, meaning it's us putting human nature onto some supernatural entity. But because it's a supernatural entity, you can't really have knowledge of it as a natural entity or natural being within the natural world. So these are kind of things that keep people in this delusion. But no, never mind that. That's not necessarily true. You don't know everything comes from something. You're going off your frame of reference as a human. But any number of other things could be possible too. Have you checked? Have you tried to prove that wrong? You know? Have you looked for other alternatives? I don't see a reason to, bro. One, I know humans invented gods, and every god I've ever heard of is invented by a human, so why would I believe in the invention of a human? I don't know if I got that sword twitch. I doubt you ever were atheist, bro. Or maybe you weren't. Let me be honest. Like, I don't know you personally, so I don't know what you think, what you've lived. If you're even telling the truth right now, you could just be lying, like most people do. Right? But if you've ever been truly skeptical, right? Let's not say atheist, just skeptical. that would have hopefully led you to do some research into the things you believe. And if you ever really were skeptical, there's no way that you could have been an atheist and decided not to be an atheist and be telling me that something created all this stuff, right? It just screams lies. Liars are the damn lies that they tell. That's what it screams. I don't know what that is, Twitch. I don't know about that, Ben. If you could say that in a different way, maybe I can understand where you're coming from. But I'm not quite sure how those two things are related. What's up, Luke? Yep. All known gods are cultural inventions, so they mirror the people who invented them for the reasons they invented them. And nearly all gods known about are made for three main reasons. One, psychological needs. What's the other one? Assigning agency. And the third one is societal cohesion, right? So assigning agency is older humans saying, hey, lightning strikes. I don't understand lightning, therefore there must be a mind who is responsible for that lightning. They build a story around it. Psychological needs is to provide comfort or certainty where there's uncertainty around massive existential questions like what happens when we die, where do we come from, who's responsible for everything. And societal cohesion is to provide moral law, right? Or a spiritual standard, so put it that way, to enforce moral order over things. They're the three reasons why humans have been inventing gods over the course of history. So yeah, it would be a mirror. And culture to culture, time to time, it changes. So say Northern Africa's interpretation of God, or their version of God back then, one of them would have been a god called Ra, right? A sun god, a creator god. Then you got Western Europe, which is England, modern day England. Their interpretation of a god would have been a god called Brigid, a god of smithing and poetry, right? Then you got Greece. They had various gods, from Zeus to whoever, right? So humans have been inventing gods, bro, and they mirror the psychological and societal needs of the people who make them. It's just how it is. But yeah, if you disagree, I'd like to know why. Go to the round table, and then there's a guy sitting at the throne where you can use boss souls to get. You talking back by the like the file link kind of thing, the main file. Let me just get a couple more points, and then I'll go. So what would you like to see fresh? In terms of demonstration, should me and you together in the chat come up with a god right now and build it out as lore, then write a book for it, and then go on to tell other people about it? Would that be a good enough demonstration to you? Because if you go back maybe about probably about 30 or 40 of my streams, there's this one where we was playing Zelda and we came up with this god called Mango Man, right? And the joke was he died for your seeds. Now people that were in that live stream can tell you exactly about the nature of that god that we came up with, right? Does that mean that god's real? There are witnesses, there are people to witness the creation of that god and the ideation of that god, should I say, right? And even the proposed configuration of that god. But does that mean that god's real, right? Would that be a good enough demonstration for you? So there you go, right? All praise Mango Man, the man who died for your seeds. Okay. What's up, SQ? Was you there? Right. So yeah, like it doesn't take much more than a couple Googles. Or if you're like me, you can go out to your national library or go to your national galleries and museums. Check out some artifacts and you'll see it for yourself. It'll be written right there for you. You've been spinning it goes, bro. I think modern humans have just lost perspective. Well, not all of us actually. I think there's a lot more rational people in 2025 than there probably was in, I don't know, 10 BCE or whatever. or 10 BC or whatever. Like, you know, it's probably more of us now than then, but people have kind of failed to examine these ideas. They've just taken them on as tradition, and then tradition is spoken about as if it's fact, and it's really just law and story. No, humans don't create logic, bro. We create the language to understand logic, but logic is something that would technically exist without humans. So we don't create our own logic. I literally just told you, bro. Hold on, I'll read you a list of gods from different places and different time periods. You tell me where they came from. I'll tell you all the known configurations of gods, you know, like polytheism, deism, animism, monotheism. You tell me where you think those gods came from, seeing as we don't have any physical evidence any one of those entities have ever existed. Okay. No, you're talking about a philosophical theory, right? It's not a fact. There is no proof of that God exists, but you're talking about grounding your logic or mathematics in a God or morality in a God. That's just a philosophical position, but not truth or a proof. Ask a real philosopher and they will tell you that, okay? So, let's start with some really old gods, right? And you tell me if they actually existed, right? Or if humans invented them. So we got Inanna, Ishtar, Sumeria, 3500 BCE. That's the god of love, war, and fertility. We got Anu, Sumeria, 3500 BCE. That's a sky god, divine authority. We got Elohim, a Canaanite god, 2000 BCE. That's a creator, high god. We got Ra, Atum, Ptah, Egyptian god, 3100 BCE. Sun, creation. These are his attributes: sun, creation, and craftsmanship. We got Enlil, Mesopotamia, 3000 BCE. Storms and rulerships, right? Then there's like Deus, Fatah, or Ptah. That's yeah, I really can't pronounce that, right? But anyways, right, there's some really old gods, right? We have no evidence they ever actually existed as entities, but we have cultural reference, meaning archaeological reference, right, and anthropological reference, right? The studies of humans and human history. Okay, so I'll tell you the known configurations of gods, right? The concepts and the conceptual frameworks people have come up with to explain their gods and how their gods fit into our world as humans, right? So you got monotheism, one all-powerful god. Examples are Christianity, Islam, Judaism. Polytheism, many gods with different roles. It's Greek, Norse, Hindu, right? Henotheism, one main god but others exist. That's early Israel and Hindu sects, right? So these gods inform your god if you're a believer of the Abrahamic faiths, right? These older versions of God inform how your God was formulated, okay? So we got pantheism, God is the universe. That's Spinoza, right? We've got panentheism, God is in all but beyond all. That's some mysticism and process theory. We've got deism, a non-intervening creator God. That's the Enlightenment deists. We've got animism, which is the oldest configuration, right? Spirits that inhabit nature. That's Shinto and indigenous beliefs. We got dualism, two opposing cosmic powers. That's Zoroastrianism and Gnosticism. Now, as I said earlier, I'll show you gods from different places at different periods of time, and you tell me if you think they actually existed or if cultures, e.g. humans, invented them, okay? So Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq, they got a god called Enlil. It's god of wind, air, and storms. That's Sumerian, right? Egypt, northern Africa, they got a god called Ra, a sun god, creator god, ancient Egypt. Greece, Europe, they got a god called Zeus, king of the gods, sky and thunder. That's ancient Greece. It's Norse, Scandinavia. Odin, god of wisdom, war, death, magic. That's Norse mythology. India, South Asia. Shiva, god of destruction, transformation. That's Hinduism. China, East Asia. Yu Huang, or Jade Emperor, supreme ruler of heaven. That's Taoism and Chinese folklore or folk religion. Japan, that's East Asia too. Amaterasu, the sun goddess central to imperial myth, that's Shinto. Yoruba, West Africa, Shango, god of thunder and lightning, Yoruba religion. Aztec, that's Mesoamerica. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god of wind and learning, that's Aztec mythology. Inca, South America, a god called Inti, sun god, patron of the Inca Empire, that's the Inca religion. Maori, that's Polynesia. They got a god called Tangaroa, god of the seas, that's Maori mythology. Native America, which is Northern America. Geechee Minotaur, the great spirit or creator god, that's the Algonquian tribes. Slavic, Eastern Europe, they got a god called Perun, god of thunder, that's Slavic paganism. Celtic, Western Europe, that's England, they got a god called Brigid, goddess of healing, poetry and smithing, that's Celtic mythology. Siberia, Central North Asia, they got a god called Num, sky god and creator god. Nanette, Siberian shamanism, right? Now you tell me if those gods were invented by humans or if they actually existed, right? That's something for you to think about. But like I said, what we do know anthropologically and archaeologically is that cultures came up with gods, right? They left traces of it, and humans still do this today, right? For three main reasons: to give it for explanatory power, right? Assigning agency to things they don't understand; for psychological needs, to give comfort and certainty where there's uncertainty; and three, for societal cohesion, right? To create laws or moral standards. Right? That's what we do know. As far as your beliefs, that's something you need to deal with, right? But we do know culturally humans invent gods, and we can trace this back for centuries. Okay. Now you present what you know. This Thistle, that's a rough quote. Thistle said, Voltaire said, religion began when the first crook met the first imbecile. That's rough. That's real. Wankle, what do you mean, bro? So yeah, like of course, your religion or your belief system might twist those other cultures into whatever you need them to, you know, contort into, right? Like, you know, oh, they're fallen angels, or they're, you know, they're demons, they're aliens, right? Whatever makes your psychology feel better, you will do that, right? But the reality is, thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago, a culture invented that god or that set of god to explain things or for the needs of their society, right? That's how they met their needs culturally. Right? This isn't an assertion, this is proof, right? I've been to the museums, I've read books, right? There's proof of this if you would go and look yourself, right? This isn't the assertions of a rambling man, right? Go and look for yourself. Why do you think we even know about these gods? It seems like you're scared to know the truth, right? Because it might mess up the reality, the false reality you built for yourself. These cultures exist. Some of them still today keep those traditions alive, right? Because it's part of their cultural memory. That's why we know about the names of their gods, okay? To deny that would just be stupid. Right. The thing is, right, you might call those other gods, right, because they're not the ones you believe in, lesser or fairy tales or whatever. But you neglect to realize that people consider your god the same as their god, right? That's the problem that you're having. That's called cognitive dissonance based on your cognitive biases. Okay. But people consider your god just as made up as any other god, right? Just like you might be a Christian, you don't believe in Shiva or you don't believe in Ra. Other people consider your god the same as Shiva and Ra, right? And then when you start getting into the history of it, your god is based on the Judaic god, right? And then the Judaic god is based on the Sumerian gods, right? And the Egyptian gods. So all of these cultures and humans, their ideas inform each other. And that's just how humans roll, bro. If you fail to understand that, then you're just not ready yet without being insulting, right? not necessarily that you're stupid, it's just that you're not ready to know this, or it's not beneficial to you to know this yet, right? But it doesn't make it any less true.
Very well. Then touch the darkness within me. Take nourishment from these sovereignless souls.
Alright, what should we get? We might need some vitality actually. Which one levels? Oh, we got right here. Which is the one that reduces? It might be dexterity actually. Maybe that was Dark Souls 1. That's a fact. You don't need to go your way to disprove something that hasn't even been proven. That's absolute fact. Maybe we slap it in dexterity. One sec. Alright. If you're ready to have a conversation about your emotions attached, then I'll gladly talk to you about it, alright? But it does say, humans invented God, changed my mind, right? This isn't about you getting an opportunity to, like, cry about your religion. It's about having a conversation. If you're arguing to convince, you need to at least understand the position of the person that you're trying to argue with, right? So to make assertions, it would be a mistake on your part, and then you won't get far. And other people who may be watching or listening, you potentially, right, push them away from your worldview too by your own ignorance, if that makes sense, right?
Farewell, Ashen One. May the flame
What's up,
burn.
Sekiro? You see, that's an assertion, right? Or that's your own whatever weird shit hang-ups you got, right? Where did I tell you anything about the universe? I didn't tell you how humans were created. I didn't tell you how the universe was created. I said humans invented God, right? And because you have various gaps in your knowledge, right? You have the position that God is responsible for these things. So whenever it's demonstrated or shown that the God that you plug your holes of knowledge with may not exist, your whole worldview falls apart because it's being like held together by tack, basically. Supernatural, invoking supernatural entities to explain natural phenomenon that you have no grasp on. So yeah, the minute I say humans invented God, it's gonna give you cognitive dissonance because you already think God is responsible for everything, but you have no proof of that. So yes, it's gonna mess with your mind. But I don't need to tell you explicitly that God didn't invent the universe. It's something that you need to come to realize, right? How could you know that? How could you possibly know that, right? When you have no proof the guy or the thing even exists, right? Anyway, but that is not what I said anyways. I simply said humans invented God, right? Now if that blows even bigger holes in your knowledge base, that's a good thing, right? Gives you space to go figure it out. What does science have to say about how the universe was formed? Maybe think about that. Oh, we got ahead. But yeah, not knowing isn't a bad thing, bro. It's just it's a part of it. Hey, what's this round table you was talking about, bro? Yeah, so I'm not here to make claims about how the universe came to be, right? Scientifically, you could do that. Philosophically, you could try, right? But through theology, creationism, right? Good luck with that, bro. Just it's like you're just throwing a bucket of paint at a hole in the wall and hoping the paint sticks and just fills the wall on its own. That's not how life works, bro. You can't know those things, so study. Don't just assume a 2,000-year-old Bedouin has the answer for all of your real-world problems in 2025, because they don't. They didn't even have a grasp. Most people back then weren't even literate, so the average person today knows more about how the universe actually works and how human, like, nature and sciences and medicines than anyone did in the past. Not anyone, maybe there were a few really intelligent people. But the average person today has way more access to information about the natural universe than people of the past. So think about that. Transposition. Let's see what we got. Man, we're weak, boy. I don't know, right? I don't know what I don't know, Sasuke. Maybe some Amaterasu. Amaterasu is a god as well, did you know that? A goddess. We was literally just talking about her. If you're wondering why there's two voices, I'm listening to episode 120, which was recorded about 2 months ago, where I took a break. I'm just trying to like somewhat revise the points that I was thinking about back then and seeing if I disagree with some of the stuff I'm saying. So that's why you can hear two voices in the background. Yeah, so don't worry about the universe. That's what I'm saying. We can have a conversation about the universe aside, right? Once you acknowledge or, concede that humans did in fact invent God, then we can move on to the next topic of figuring out how our natural world works or our natural universe works. But if you think you can shoehorn in your supernatural entity to explain natural phenomenon, right, you're gonna struggle, right? And it's only you that's really gonna suffer because you shut yourself off from information, which ultimately is just gonna keep you ignorant, do you know? But talking about how the universe came to be, that's fun, right? That's like astrophysicists or whatever they call it, or I forget what the other people are called, right? But yeah, that's fun. I can talk with you about that as a normal person. I'm not a scientist though, right? I'm just like I'm not a theologian. But what I do know is that I've looked into the nature of humans coming up with gods via archaeology and anthropology, and I can tell you, across time and across cultures, humans have invented gods for various reasons. And we have cultural reference points. We have archaeological data, right? We got paintings, we got carvings, we got books, we got cultures that survive till today. We got all kinds of things that tell us this to be true, right? But yeah, in terms of how the universe came to be, even some of the best scientists in the world don't fully comprehend or understand it. So why do you think me and you on a random chat on the internet will have the answer to that? Much less a 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000-year-old Bedouin somewhere who didn't even have access to a telescope, right? Why do you think they will have the answer? So think about that. Alright, so let's go have a look around here. Right, exactly. You guys are jumping to the nature of the universe, and the next thing is going to be claims around morality, because you can't actually engage with the main topic. Humans invented God, right? Just because you use the concept of God to plug your knowledge in other areas, it's not relevant to argue about those other areas right here, right now, right? You need to get over the proof. You need to get over the fact that humans invented God first, or refute that with something tangible, right? But I believe on your part it's going to be very difficult to do, seeing as there's no proof of a god ever existing anyway, right? So that's some kind of like, well, it's two things. It's cognitive bias and cognitive dissonance, right? Which is making you run to the universe conversation, right? Or run to a conversation on morality, or run to a conversation on logic. These are philosophical theories at best, right? word puzzles, things to make you think, but they're not definitive proof of any god. If that were the case, there would never be a conversation about it. But since it's not, right? Since philosophical theorem, right, or ideas like transcendental gods and stuff like that aren't proof, you need to wake up, right? That's good for thinking, but that's not good for practicality. It's not good for reality. You know, those things aren't proofs of God. They never have been. Right? Even Aquinas couldn't really get it laid down, right? So see, I told you, right? It's a cognitive dissonance. Who told you anything about the universe, right? We're talking about humans inventing gods. And what did I tell you? The three main reasons why humans invent gods. Right? Reason one, to assign agency to things they don't understand, e.g. the universe, right? Nature. Two, for psychological needs, right? To give themselves comfort or certainty where there's uncertainty around questions like where do we come from, what happens when we die. And three, societal cohesion, to install moral law or to control people, right? This is basically what's kicking you in the ass. All three of those things, right now, here in this conversation. Woo, bro, gone. Yeah, I've read what you're saying. You're not providing any unique perspective on this. It's just a lot of, respectfully, it's just a lot of regurgitation of really bad debate points, debate brain points. When I said to you, I'm not telling you, I made no claims about how the universe was formed, how humans got here. I made no claims about that. No. What we're talking about is humans inventing God. Right? And all of you so far in the chat that I've read haven't even attempted to engage with that. Do you know why? Because it's something that's irrefutably true. Humans invented God. All known gods are psychological constructs that cannot exist independently of the mind, as they require faith, imagination, or belief to interact with. So they are functionally non-existent until somebody that devises that God imparts it to you for you to interact with, or you yourself devise a God. Right? You wouldn't go out into nature as a 2,000-year-old wherever, like in Western England or Europe, and discover Ra. Like, you wouldn't go out into nature and discover the God of the Bible. You and your culture on your landmass would have developed ideas that suit your cultural needs and habitat. That's how we have the gods we have, and they vary region to region, time to time, because of that. Okay? Yes, the big three, or, well, you could say the big one, split into three, the Abrahamic faiths, have lasted the longest, right? That's because they have a lot of political capital in terms of being able to move people, right? Cultural capital, right? But all three of those religions, Abrahamic religions, are informed by other religions of the past, other configurations of gods from the past, right? This is just it's fact, it's proven. You can check it for yourself. I've no need to bamboozle you about these things, right? Just go look. You can even go look at the timeline of who comes when, right? Who comes before the Jews, right? And who comes after the Jews, and who comes after the Christians, who comes after the Greeks. Like, all of these things you can look up for yourself, man. We've been using story to explain things for as long as we've had command over language, right? Which is in itself split biscuit an abstract thing, right? The ability to communicate is an abstract thing. Like, think about it like this: you think in words, right? But words have to be invented in order to contextualize concepts in the first place, right? So it is kind of it's pretty deep, but it's not that deep at the end of the day when it comes to these ideas. These ideas are very surface because they're just that. They're things that are supposed to give explanatory power. But how human minds actually work, and that shit's the deep shit, right? What are we? Why are we? They're the deep shit. Yeah, I'm not gonna beat this guy yet, bro. We need some more some souls. Class said chicken meat egg. Right, yeah, we're not gonna get that guy out of here, so we need to get some souls. Actually, I think I could get rid of that guy, but it would take some serious concentration. Where does the concept of any god come from, if not human mind, right? Move that to one side, right? If, how can I put this simply, right? If there was a supernatural entity called God, right, we would all have access to it, right? It would be discoverable on an individual basis. It wouldn't need to be conceptualized by cultures and put into books and you know, create philosophical theorem around it. It'd be actual and accessible. Simply that alone should be enough to make you realize what I'm saying. I'm reading the YouTube comments, bro, but like I said, like all I'm seeing is a lot of debate, bro, and regurgitation, but nothing really substantial. Respectfully. Right, we need to go explore the archive. That's what we should do. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yep, KO, that's pretty accurate, but even more than those. You remember, like, the Abrahamic faiths are a Middle Eastern thing, right? So they're informed by things like ancient Mesopotamia, Sumeria, Northern Africa. People, like, completely miss the mark. And then when you get down to Christianity, you get a lot of European Greek influence in a rewriting of the actual lore or mythos. But yeah. There is no real God, right? To a believer in Ra, that is the real God. To a believer in Lil, that is the real God. To a believer in the Bible, that is the real God. But is there any proof any one of those gods actually exist as an entity? No. Right? You're just telling me your personal preference. You prefer this God to that God because you've probably been culturally indoctrinated, or is the right word inculcated? Whatever. You've been culturally positioned to be born into this culture at this time, so therefore that informs your belief systems. Now that's not everyone, because some people are born into one culture where everyone may be Muslim or everyone may be Jewish or might be Christian, and then they go out and they seek information and they decide to believe in something else. They're few and far between, but most people believe what the people around them believe, right? Because it's a cultural thing, okay? And that should even should point you in the right direction of what I'm trying to say to you. Do you think it's an accident that so many of you are Christian? No, right? This is a historical thing. Christianity became a political vehicle for Rome, right? And after it done that, it went on to conquer the world through armies, through tyranny, right? Some people converted willingly, but lots and lots of people didn't, right? It became a valuable asset to control and move people. So here you are in 2025 as a product of that, right? Wars and such, political strife, you're the product of that. Right? You just don't read, so you don't know, right? But it's not your fault. It's the same thing for Islam, right? It's the same thing for all three of the Abrahamic faiths, right? There are other faiths too that exist side by side, all kinds of different configurations of gods, right? From polytheism to animism, dualism. These ideas and configurations still live culturally, but they're majority suppressed by the big three Abrahamic religions because of their political capital, right? Because of their cultural relevance via the history of politics and war. Right? That's why. Islam, vehicle for war. Christianity, vehicle for war. Judaism, vehicle for war. All have been historically. Just read, pick up a book, do a Google, right? A lot of books are free as PDFs now on the internet, right? So you don't even have to pay to read anymore. You can just do a Google, right? Go into Google Scholar if you're scared, you know. Like if you can't trust references, don't Wikipedia. Use Google Scholar, you know. This information is free, bro. Just a couple months back, I went to an exhibition at the British Museum. And they had religious texts from all over the world, right? The most relevant ones. Some of the original Bibles, original Qurans, original Torahs, and then there's like Hindu stuff, Asian stuff, like how can all of these different ideas be in one room together, right? It's obvious humans across the world are thinking up different ways to explain things. Okay, if there was one God, right, there would be no need for all these different variations across time, right? For instance, right, if there was an objective supernatural entity called God, it would show up the same in every culture and every time, right? It'd be like maths, even though it's a different type of concept, abstract concept. It would be like maths. It'd be the same time after time, culture to culture, but it's not, right? What we do know is that all the configurations of God mirror the cultures that devise them. Okay, so what does that tell you? Alright, I can't fight this boss right now. Definitely not while I'm yapping like this. I'll get my ass beat. I know I can get this guy down, but it's when he goes to second. He's got me. Yeah, he got me. That's a scientific question, right? That has nothing to do with the idea of God. That's something you can go study, man. I'm not a scientist, so I don't necessarily have the answer to that. But I don't think your theology has the answer to that either. England flag, that's one of the reasons. That's psychological needs, right? Let's go explore, man, because we're just getting arse beat. How could you possibly know that, B1? That's just somebody's idea. That's not necessarily true. Oh, Lord. To me, what you're saying is as good as saying God is inside time but outside time. To me, it's as good as that, right? And when you really think about how senseless that is, you realize why I don't take what you're saying seriously. Respectfully. Waste of time, not really. Bro, your heart is just a pump. Electromagnetic was it like bio pump, right? That's all it does, right? It moves blood around your body. Doesn't have eyes. No need to be metaphoric, bro. We know that our mind is like the CPU now. Very poetic, bro. But it counts for absolutely nothing. Oh, wait, I think I've done this already. Oof. Yeet. How can we get down there, though? Little shit. Ugly hours. Oh, you got me! No! Oh, I survived. That's chill. Right, let's go collect that thing first. Bro, none of us know, bro. That's all. That. If we're being honest, B1, B19, nobody knows. Everyone's come up with ideas and hypotheses around them, or around our existence, or the coincidence of us existing, but no one actually knows. Or if there are a group of people who know, they're definitely not making that knowledge public. I can tell you that. No. Put it simply. How can you know God is infinite if you're a finite being? This is what I'm talking about. You're saying all of this nonsense when you're not really thinking about what you're saying. How could you know he's finite if you yourself are finite? How can you have knowledge of something that's transcendental, right? While you yourself are restrained to the universe you exist in, right? Being in like space, matter, space-time matter. How can you know that? You're just respectfully just regurgitating philosophical theorem, but you're not thinking about what that even means. What are the implications of that? You don't know. But anyways. Oh, I forgot about the wax. I've got to use a homeward bone. Yeah, but the only thing we can do is just fight that guy right now. Is it?
Is it? What's that, Prince?
Nah, I'm listening to a stream that I recorded like 2 months ago. Well, yeah, about 2 months ago. It's not double audio. It's just I'm listening to it in the background. Yeah, just because you're unable to engage with the topic properly, like people have this I want it now mentality, especially as a streamer, and you see like the crazy entitlement. Why do you think, yeah, let me not be rude about it, but Sekiro, you're not entitled to my time, right? I don't have to engage with what you specifically are saying, right? No disrespect, but don't feel so bloody entitled, bro. We disagree on some things. I've told you why I think what I think, right? And you're restating positions that I told you are not even relevant to the conversation. So what do you expect me to do with that? You expect me to like fill my brain up with the things you want to say just because you want to say it, right? That's not helpful. Respectfully. Alright, why are we back here? Oh, it's my bad. Ah. Because I said, what did I say to you, Sekiro, right? You're not providing any unique perspective on this subject. Right? If I've done 122 episodes on the same subject, do you think there's no chance that I haven't come across what you've said already? But respectfully, again, you know, just putting it out there. considering the type of words you're using, right? The type of, the line of thinking you're using. Do you think there's any chance that I may have come across that already? So think about it from my perspective. Where? Where is this thing? If we, oh, we got it now. See more points.
But hey, be careful. I don't want to see my works.
Same, bro. Yeah, so I do have proof. I can provide anthropological and archaeological data, and I can also urge you to go and do some Googles or maybe visit the National Library, depending on what country you live in. Visit a Smithsonian branch museum or whatever. I can provide you with data to back up what I'm saying, right? All known gods are psychological constructs. They're cultural inventions, right? And how can we know they're cultural inventions? We can go region to region, right, over the course of history and see how humans in different places and different cultures have invented different configurations of gods, mostly for the needs of that society. Put simply, an ancient Greek person wouldn't have gone out into nature in Greece and discovered Ra, or the god of the Bible, right? They would have gone out into nature, observed their surroundings, and configured a god that suits their psychological needs and their cultural needs, e.g. Zeus, right? Or any number of the other gods, right? But that's too much, right? I would simply say to you this, right? All the known configurations of gods come from human minds, right? And the reason they vary so vastly or so greatly is because humans are different in different places. If there was one objective supernatural entity, every single one of us would have direct access to that experience, and it would be discoverable. So there would be no need to invent all of these different conceptual frameworks for God or gods, right? But yes, based on proof, if you need proof, I'll give you the conceptual frameworks for gods, meaning monotheism, polytheism, henotheism, panentheism, pantheism, theism, animism, dualism, whichever, right? Then I'll go country to country, region to region, and show you gods that they invented, okay? That's my proof, right? And to do this every single time is jarring for me, so I'll do it every now and again. But Mesopotamia, they created a god called Enlil. That's god of wind, air, and storms, right? Before I explain that, right? What we do know from human history is humans have developed gods or concepts of gods for three main reasons, right? The first is assigning agency, meaning they came up with stories to give explanatory power to things they couldn't understand. E.g., an earlier human would have seen something me and you describe as lightning. They wouldn't have understood it. Therefore, they would have said, I don't understand that, so there must be a mind who's responsible for that, right? Or understands that. They would have come up with story, L-O-R-E, lore around that event, okay? And that would have gone on to be built into a deity. They would deify the figure, and they would have looked around for like things to associate with the event of lightning, okay? And then the other reason is for psychological needs, to provide certainty where there's uncertainty. This is like evolutionary psychology to an extent, right? About how humans evolved and how they came up with systems to survive, okay? So for psychological needs, they would have looked for things to explain where we come from, what happens when we die, who's responsible for the universe, what is nature, all these kinds of deep philosophical questions, right? They would have came up with gods or configurations of gods to give answers to these things. Even though those answers may not actually comport with reality, they provide comfort through certainty or the illusion of certainty, right? And the third is for societal cohesion, to enforce law or to control and move people from A to B, political power basically, right? So you get things like the 10 Commandments, the 42 Laws of Ma'at, like the grounding for political theorem through the ideas, through the cultural ideas of gods, things like hierarchies, things like anthropomorphic gods, like Zeus is the king of gods. That's an anthropomorphic feature, so he's above this god, that god. So I can't remember all their names, like people like Aphrodite and stuff like that, things like Apollo and shit like that, right? That's an anthropomorphic feature, right? So there's three main classes why people have created gods through history: to assign agency to things, explain things they don't understand, to provide psychological needs, certainty where there's uncertainty, and for societal cohesion, right? Now I'll tell you some gods that humans have come up with across time and across cultures, right? This is data, right? This is facts and information, right, that you can put together to give you proof and evidence, right? So Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq, Enlil, that's a god of wind, air and storms. You can see how it fits into the framework. That's a god that was designed to explain what wind, air and storms, explanatory power, okay? That's ancient Sumeria. Egypt, Northern Africa, a god called Ra, a sun god, a creator god. Again, it provides psychological needs by giving you a reason behind where everything comes from, and it also gives explanatory power to the nature of the sun, okay? That's ancient Egypt. Greece, Europe, Zeus, king of the gods, sky and thunder. Like I just finished saying, that's an anthropomorphic feature. It's showing you hierarchy which mirrors human nature, right? A leader among men, a leader among gods, okay? Across time and across cultures, there are different variations of gods that mirror the cultures that produce them for their cultural needs, right? But these cultural needs inform other people's development. Like, you know, when Europe started mixing with Africa and Asia, they shared ideas on religion, they shared ideas on philosophy, just like they shared food and clothes and went to war and mathematics and, you know, language, right? Humans shared things, so they built off other cultural ideas, okay? So moving on, Norse, Scandinavia, Odin, wisdom, war, death, magic. That's Norse mythology. India, South Asia, Shiva, destruction, transformation. Hinduism. Again, if you just listen to their attributes that the culture that produced them assigned to them, you can see how they fit into the framework of explanatory power, psychological needs, and societal cohesion. You can see how they fit into the framework, okay? China, East Asia, Yu Huang, Jade Emperor, Supreme Ruler of Heaven. That's Taoism, Chinese folklore. Japan, East Asia, Amaterasu, Sun Goddess, central to imperial myth. That's Shinto. Yoruba, West Africa, Shango, God of thunder and lightning. That's Yoruba religion. Aztec, Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl. That's the feathered serpent, god of wind and learning. Right. So you got elemental part to that god and an abstract part to that god. Right, which is something later humans became more acquainted with. Abstract concepts, okay? That's Aztec mythology. Inca, South America, Inti, sun god, patron of the Inca Empire. That's Inca religion. Maori, Polynesia, Tangaroa, god of the seas. That's Maori mythology. Native America, Geechee Minotaur, great spirit, creator god. That's the Algonquian tribes. Slavic, Eastern Europe, Perun, god of thunder and war. That's Slavic paganism. Celtic, Western Europe, Brigid, goddess of healing, poetry and smithing, right? Celtic mythology, Siberia, Central North Asia, Num, sky god and creator god, right? That's the Nanette. All that to say, there is data across time, across cultures, across regions, available in books, available to actually go and see, hop on a plane, go and see Greece, go and see Rome, go and see Northern Africa, go and see Mesoamerica. There's physical proof and evidence that cultures developed these gods and left behind artifacts for us to know about them, right? And a lot of the stories and mythos that these gods that they created stay within the culture as a part of cultural memory. That's how me and you can know who the hell Enlil is, who the hell Ra is, who the hell Quetzalcoatl is. That's how we can know. So that is clear evidence, anthropologically and archaeologically, that humans have been inventing or developing concepts of God for a long, long time. We're talking thousands and thousands of years, yeah? And it's data that's out there. The problem is people have a cognitive bias and also cognitive dissonance when discussed, that they can't seem to comport their own ideas about God into the same bracket as other people's ideas of God, right? Your God of the Bible is looked upon the same way as the Judaish God, the Sumerian God, the Mesoamerican God, the God of Northern Egypt or Northern Africa, like everyone else, right? Everyone else sees your God, the God of the Bible, the same as them. But it may be a surprise to you that people who believe in your religion are the only ones who believe that your God exists or your God is anything other than anyone else's God, right? Maybe I'm not explaining this properly, but all that to say, we have evidence that cultures and humans have been inventing gods for a long time. Right. That's all I'm saying. No, now you're giving me a philosophical theorem about the uncaused cause, transcendental. Those are philosophical ideas, but they're not proofs of any entity, okay? They are philosophical frameworks for thinking, but they don't account for actual real world practical evidence. Philosophers know this, theologians know this. This is why the big fallback is on philosophical debate, because there's no actual empirical data. The only empirical data we have for gods, e.g., right, is the cultural history, right? The archaeological tablets, the books, what the culture's stories are passed down through oratorical history, right? They're the only evidences we have, but they're not enough evidence to any of those things. The archaeological tablets, the books, the culture, right, is not enough physical evidence to prove the existence of the actual entity. It's only enough to prove that people came up with it, right? The philosophical theories like transcendental, the uncaused cause or whatever, or cosmological arguments, they're philosophical debates. They're tools to make you think, but they're not proofs for an actual entity. Don't get too caught in debate, bro, mind, to understand what I'm saying. At the end of the day, we can exhaust all of these philosophical arguments to the highest degree we can all go, right? But we still have to come to actual physical reality. Where is the evidence empirically of any one of these entities? You need a conceptual framework of God first, like someone has to invent a conceptual framework of God first for you to build a philosophical theory around it. Yeah? Someone has to come up with the idea of omnipotent, omniscient, or whatever for you to be able to make a theory around that to explain things like where the universe comes from, or the grounding of logic or morality. Someone has to develop a concept of God first, right? And that's the hurdle you're failing to deal with. You need to develop the concept of God first to build philosophical theory around it, to have philosophical debate about it, right? And that's the bit that people ignore because it's hard to deal with. It's called cognitive dissonance.
See my work squandered.
All right then. Okay. You can't have a transcendental first mover without coming up with a concept of God first. Okay. You can't tell me about being inside time and outside time without coming up with the idea first. Right? The ideation happens first. If there was empirical evidence, then we wouldn't need to come up with concepts about it. We could go directly to the source. Every man, woman, and child would have direct access to this supernatural entity. No philosophical theorem necessary. No extended vocabulary necessary. No religion necessary. No theory necessary. We would all have the same access to this supposed supernatural entity that you describe as God, and he describes as Quetzalcoatl, and she describes as Shiva, right? We'd all have access to that entity, and it'd be the same across time and across culture, but it's not, right? They're all concepts that humans come up with. So I'm sorry to say, that's just how it works, right? You can't, Aquinas cannot be Aquinas without someone developing the idea of God, right? The God of the Bible. And the God of the Bible cannot be without someone developing Judaism. And then Judaism can't be without someone developing Sumerian gods like Enlil, Enkidu, or whatever those people are, right? And someone can't develop those ideas about Ra and all those people. And then the far and far back you get to like the Lion Man figurine, a spiritual figure representation, right? All of these concepts are based on other concepts, okay? So for you to be here in 2025 using as much philosophical theorem and vocabulary you can to argue for the existence of God, you're jumping over hurdles and hurdles and thousands of years of human development of building on ideas, which all really stem from us trying to understand the nature of reality, not necessarily the existence of any supernatural entity, okay? So if you jump over all of that actual anthropological and archaeological data, you're making a huge mistake and you're leaning on some next level ifs and buts and maybes, right? But I've come to the point where I don't have to engage in ifs and buts and maybes. I can just look at what we know, what we can know, right? And what we can know is that humans across time and across cultures have developed ideas of gods. It's what we can know. Oh, I just went to the same place because I'm yapping. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, man. There's I know for me to say it's obvious is ignorant to an extent, but it's something you have to know to understand what I'm saying to you. It's not an assumption. If there was, if any one of the gods I just told you, from Mesoamerica to Mesopotamia, actually existed as actual entities, like physical or, you know, ethereal entities that could be interacted with, we'd have access to that. So if you was to say, all right, they did exist, but somehow died, then now you've built yourself a whole nother set of ifs, buts, maybes, possibilities, which are great for building ideas, but not so great for actually informing us on the nature of reality. What's true, what can be known, right? It's good if you want to go off and build a fiction. If you want to make a Dark Souls, right? Or Bloodborne, the old gods and shit. It's great if you want to dive into like shit like that. But in terms of practical, useful knowledge, it's no good. You know, like, yeah, people been doing this, right? But like I said earlier on, at this stage in 2025, the average human being, even the average 12-year-old, has way better understanding of the nature of reality than someone did thousands of years ago. So you should use that to your advantage and not be like, oh yeah, why am I defaulting to this heavily debunked old ideation instead of looking at what all of this development humanity's had up until now. Right? It makes no sense. Right? It's a default because it's easier. Instead of having to figure out, oh, what does that mean in physics? What does that mean in philosophy? What does that mean in mathematics? It's much easier to just say, hey, God did that. That's God's responsibility. Because it's a thought stopper. You don't have to think. It's done for you. It's ready. It's nice prepared cake. Right? But there are people out here actually building a whole world and figuring out a world for you so you can engage with it on a deeper level. Just like vocabulary. The more words you know is the clearer you can describe and understand reality. And this is something people are struggling with in 2025 with all the bloody information at their fingertips. This is the thing, right? The idea of creation is an assertion anyway, right? Like I just mentioned, based on vocabulary, creation is a human concept. You've never, maybe outside of a few animals that do environmental things, you've never had any other frame of reference for creation other than human beings. Across history, there's no other frame of reference for anything creating anything except from us, right? If you're talking about like nature producing things, I don't know if that'd be the same as an active mind or a mind actively creating something, right? You could describe that as natural phenomena, you know, like the formation of rocks. Is that an act of deliberate creation? Not necessarily, right? But only frame of reference you have for deliberate creation, right? A mind willing something into existence through a series of processes is humans. And then you put that anthropological idea onto this supernatural entity you describe as God. How could you ever possibly know, right? Anyways. You can never know that. Right? So this idea of creation is a human idea anyway, and it comes from humans' ability to create things, or let's be real, humans' ability to manipulate things. I don't know. I'm not sure what you're saying about impossibles, right? I'm not talking in absolutes. I'm just saying what we know. Or preaching won't get you anywhere with me, to be honest. Like, you can try, but it's not gonna do you any good. If you want to change my mind, then you have to at least engage with the topic honestly, and not from the bias of your preferred beliefs. Because it's, especially when I've looked at other belief systems, it's like, why should I care that you prefer this belief system than any other? Why should I care? That's not a good conversation to have. Oh boy. And we were out. What makes you think anybody or anything made the world? The world could have formed through natural processes. No mind with intention responsible. No, that's not true. That's your thinking, which is not very developed. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Daryl. That's human nature. Like, I forget the word for it, but in short, it's what you're describing is the anthropomorphic, meaning it's of human characteristic, right? We have no proof that any minds out there intentionally created anything other than our own. We have no reason to think that. Right, so this whole watchmaker argument, that's basic, it's silly, it's pathetic, right? Because you're talking about synthetic things. We have a frame of reference for these synthetic things, and we also have a frame of reference for the people or the beings that produce these synthetic things, e.g. us. But you have no proof of this supernatural thing, and then you also have no proof that this supernatural thing is capable of, one, having a mind and will, and two, actually being able to do anything. You have no evidence of that. So to compare that, to make the comparison, like the watchmaker's analogy, is stupid, right? You know humans exist. You know humans are capable of making watches, but you don't know the supernatural entity exists, and you don't know what and if it's capable of anything. So it's a big leap. There's a word for it though. I can't remember the right word for it. But yeah, it's a very simplistic way of thinking. Because it exists, someone must have made it. All right, now use that same line of reasoning all the way up until you're gone. Right? If it exists, someone must have made it, right? Do you see where that, you see where that's gonna lead you, right? And then we have to do psychological loop-de-loops, special pleadings. Well, no, he's an uncaused cause. He's a transcendental being, right? Yeah, all right. How did you know that? Being a finite being, right? Inside of the universe. You see the problems that'll lead you to. It's very stupid. Exactly, right? What is that called? The uncaused cause is literally a dodging of accountability, right? It's silly. That's what I'm saying. When layman Christians get involved with philosophical theories, they make it sound bad, right? Let the philosophers argue about that. Like you don't understand transcendentalism fully. So let the fucking philosophers argue about that. It's really bad. It's terrible, bro. You'd have 5 ways regurgitated in a minute. It's really bad. It's like, right. So let me know. I'm being disrespectful in a way, right? This is more about conversation than than aggressive debate. But what happens a lot on the internet is everyone defaults to aggressive debate tactics, right? Rather than actual honest engagement, right? Trying to understand perspectives. So they default to keywords, buzzwords, and theories, right? Cosmological arguments, transcendental arguments, uncaused cause arguments. But the truth is, those belong in the realm of philosophy, right? And ethics. People who argue about thinking for a living. Right? The average person doesn't even have the true frame of reference for any of those things, right? Yeah, but that's what I'm saying to you, right? This is 2025. I don't know if Thomas Aquinas would think the same things he thinks. He thought back then if he has access to the information we have today. Do you? Stuff you should consider. Bro, you don't know if you have a maker, bro. This is what I'm saying about the lack of honesty in belief systems. Address what you can know, right? Not make believe. What can you know about your own personal existence? You have a mum and you have a dad, right? And that goes up a causal chain of parents and maybe evolution and maybe abiogenesis. But beyond that, you cannot make any like certain claims about anything, right? It's even hard to make certain claims about your own existence, you know? So talking about this whole, our creator tells us, no, motherfucker, you're telling me what a book told you to say. But you haven't even really interrogated where the ideas in that book come from and what the purpose of it. How true is it? Does this hold up when I put it next to the light? That's what I'm saying, bro. So when I see that these regurgitated, like, not idioms, so to speak, but so yeah, I've seen this one before. It's like, yeah, you're just telling me you're not thinking. That's all you're saying. Right? It's easier to plug this in with a phrase, plug a phrase in here that makes it seem like you thought about it, but you haven't. You've outsourced your capacity to understand things for people, like creatures and shit, rather than actually looking at it for yourself. The only maker you truly can be honest about as a human is your parents. And if you're a test tube baby, the scientist that brought you to be. That's the only honest answer to it. In terms of makers. Everything else is conjecture and hopes. Two-hand the weapon. Yeah, but it's such a slow swing, bro. I need that shield. Yep. I remember what I was going to do now. No, I wouldn't believe you overtone, right? Because a miracle is supposed to be something that can't happen. It's supposed to be impossible. If miracles just happened, then they wouldn't be miracles, would they? It's supposed to defy the laws of nature, or, you know, the laws of physics. So if miracles are just happening casually and you know about them, then they're not miracles, bro. Yeah, I'm saying words. That's how talking works. We don't waste our time disproving things that haven't even been proven, bro. This is basic stuff you should know. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna do. Alright. Let's go mine some points and upgrade a sword. I swear I sent that elevator back up. Good lord. This is fun, isn't it? It's not. Oh, is YouTube glitching for you guys? See if I can do something about that. Like, ending Twitch. Yeah, stream's a little bit behind. My bad. Thanks for that follow. What's up, Triller? There you go. Ah, he got me. Got me out of there. Stream's buggy.
Which is not a bad thing, because philosophy of silence and science of thoughts must be.
Yeah, stream is delayed. Alright. So what I'm going to do is reboot my program. Yeah, I had to stop sending a signal quickly because the stream is glitching out a bit. Hopefully it's better now.
Hopefully it's better now.
Nope, it's not better. Computer's a bit old, bro. A bit. It's a lot old. Alright, here's what we can do to fix this. Take that out. Okay, how long have we been on? I was going to say 20 more minutes anyways. We're receiving data? Alright guys, I'm going to shut the YouTube stream down. I got to end that stream, yeah, it's just bugging out. Yeah. It's not even letting me end the stream.